So today, I'm very excited because we're diving into a very critical topic, the journey of transforming international ownership into local ownership. And as Jim said, we have amazing colleagues from AGE, Myanmar, and HelpAge International who are going to navigate this conversation. But for those of you who are new to the Reimagining INGO Systems Change project, I'll just like to highlight a bit on the work that we have done together. It's a systems change initiative, which is currently hosted by WACSI, and it's designed to transform global civil society to meet today's very peculiar and complex challenges. The project has gone through 2 phases, and we are hopefully going to be going into the third phase, and there'll be a lot more information about that later on. In phase one, we brought together an inspiring group of change makers through a social lab. And these groups of people were leaders from across civil society. So leaders from the majority world, from the minority world, and also leaders from academia and also institutional funders. And they collaborated to launch a portfolio of innovative prototypes aimed at shifting power. In phase two, we kind of sharpened our focus to influence key decision makers through 2 dedicated action pods. We targeted INGO boards and institutional funders. Along the way, we also conducted groundbreaking research and hosted community gatherings to share valuable insights from Ringo's innovations and similar efforts across the sector. Through these processes, one thing we kept on hearing, and was something that we heard a lot during these conversations, was that there was a need for tangible examples, practicable and practical examples that show how power is actually being shifted. There was an appetite for real-world case studies that show how these changes can actually happen. So that's why we are really excited today to have 2 of our incredible guests with us today, as I mentioned before, from AGE, Myanmar, and HelpAge International. These are living examples of what it means to shift power and resources equitably. And so today they are going to share their experiences, the lessons learned, and the practical steps from their journey. So I would like to thank all of you for being here. And I would like to say, Jim, the ball is in your court. Let's get started.
Thank you so much. And indeed, all roads today lead to Myanmar. And we all know the beautiful country of Myanmar. We have a lot of perspectives about this wonderful country. And of course, be they political or apolitical, and the nexus between these and civil society in the country. However, for this spotlight session, we will specifically be talking about, the transfer of ownership from an international level to a local level. And the local level, or the local context in this case, is this beautiful country of Myanmar. And in this case, we will be looking at a specific organization that, as the conversations unfold, we will delve deeper into this. So it will really be important for us to really explore aspects of this conversation with the central interest around the process of transferring ownership from international level to the national level in Myanmar. At this juncture, I would like to invite my colleague, Sparkle, to just quickly take us through a quick poll. Sparkle?
Thanks, Jim. So I just want to so it's been great to see where everyone's calling in from on the chat. Thank you so much for adding your names and countries, but it would be also really interesting to hear what organizations you're coming from. Obviously, we're having a conversation here between an international INGO and a local organization. So it would just be interesting to see who is in the room, what kind of organizations you're from. So I'm just going to launch a poll, and it should appear on your screens now. So I'll just give you like 30 seconds. So if you could just indicate whether you're calling in from an implementing organization in the minority world, so an INGO or an intermediary, whether you're an implementing organization in the majority world, so like a national NGO, country office, local NGO, movement and network, a funder or donor, and other. And I know we could have put so many different options in there, but we had to keep it short for the poll. So just if you could indicate where you're calling from, so we have an idea of the audience and can make sure that the conversation is tailored to you. Great. I'll just give it a couple more seconds and we'll have a look and see. Cool. All right, final answers. I think we've got most people have answered. All right, I'm going to end the poll. And so you should be able to see on your screen. So actually nearly 50% of the people on the call are from INGOs or intermediaries. So that's really interesting. We've got quite a large group of people here who are really interested in understanding the process from the perspective of the INGOs. 12% from like more national NGOs or local NGOs, and then 34% other, which is kind of what we expected. So I'm sure that anyone interested in this shifting power will find this conversation really insightful. So now, thank you very much, and I'll hand back to Jim to welcome our guests and start the conversation. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very, very much. And it's really good to see the rich diversity of, organizations represented here in this conversation. And I'm sure we all have our unique interests and, of course, our collective interests at the same time. And so to have this stimulating conversation today, we will be actually talking to two wonderful colleagues. We have Dr. Hen, Dr. Hen Ted So, who has worked with HelpAge International Myanmar since 2009. And of course, over this period, he has accumulated over 15 years of experience in different roles across projects, programs, and operational management within the organization. His work focused on health and care, nutrition, social protection, national social pension rollout, aging, research, capacity strengthening, advocacy, policy work at the national level, and operational management within the organization. As part of HelpAge's localization strategy, Dr. Hen played a key role alongside core executive members in founding AGE Myanmar. And AGE, just to let us know, is the Alliance for Generations and Empowerment in Myanmar. And this organization was founded on the 7th of July, 2023. So I think they are about 1 year, 4 months old today. Now he is serving as the Chief Executive Officer of this organization, and he leads AGE Myanmar with a commitment to being locally led, globally connected, and strengthening the capacity of older women and men and utilizing their abilities to drive positive change in their communities. And of course, no one would be most suited to be part of this conversation than Dr. Hen. Dr. Hen, it's good to have you here with us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jim. Very nice to be here and very nice for having this introduction by Jim.
Great. And I'll be coming back to you very shortly. Meanwhile, let's look at the colleague who will equally be sharing some insights on this transfer journey, who is Bert. Bert Merton is HelpAge International's head of transformation since 2021. I am somehow curious to know what is the core of this role, transformation. It is the role is to grow HelpAge's strategic capability to transform and achieve its 2030 strategy. The purpose of the transformation team is to articulate, activate, and embed key initiatives that advance the transformation ambition of HelpAge International. Previously, that's between May 2018 and March 2021, Bird was HelpAge's head of programs for Asia Pacific, where he oversaw programs and partnerships on health and care, humanitarian preparedness and response, and partnership on health and response, social protection, and voice. Bird has worked for over 20 years in the development sector in Asia and the Pacific. He has supported programs, initiatives, partnerships, and campaigns in relation to economic justice and climate change. He equally managed Oxfam's Global Climate Change campaign in the run-up to, during, and after the UN Climate Summit in Copenhagen. Bird managed campaigns in Southeast Asia and country programs in Vietnam and the Pacific. Bird has a background in international and development economics. He is originally from Belgium and has lived in the Asia-Pacific region since 1999. He is currently based in Chiang Mai, Thailand. It's really good to have you here with us, Bird. And one thing to mention is that Bird has really been a core social lab member of Ringo, playing a key role in sharing ideas and, of course, leveraging some of the insights that were shared during the Ringo journey over the past few months to contribute, hopefully, to this process we will be talking about today. Bird, it is good to have you here with us. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Jim. Wonderful to be here. Great to see so many colleagues and friends.
I love the smile on your face, Bird, and it's attracting me to ask you this question. As head of transformation in your organization and looking at where you've come, supporting this process of having Age Myanmar, in place today in collaboration with Dr. Hen, how do you feel?
Oh, every localization journey is really unique and novel. The Myanmar journey has been really special, and it's such a rich experience, lots of twists and turns, and it's really wonderful to see where they have gotten to, and there's much more exciting things ahead. So really excited about Haynes' work and that of the team, and really proud and inspiration actually for many of us.
That really sounds good. And, I would assume that Dr. Hen is blushing, but Dr. Hen, let me come to you. Looking at this wonderful journey that you've come across with your colleagues, what was that moment, or when was that moment that it became clear to you and colleagues in Myanmar that you have to become independent?
Thank you, Jim. To answer these questions, the turning points or impulses, but we have so many, points and impulses to highlight. So we cannot definitely say the specific, point that we say we want to do localization. We want to be independent, To explain it, it's firstly all about, HelpAge, 2030 strategy, as part of that localization strategy, the country offices to be localized in one day, that will be part of the strategy. But for our country, as the local staff, this is not just a strategy. For us, as a necessity to be localized, to do something, to have the independence, environment for us to serve for our local people. And, the other important thing that we consider why we localize is all about, knowing ourselves, during the crisis. As you know that we have the COVID pandemic across the globe, including Myanmar, and also the other one is the military coup, 1st February 2021. Followed by that, the expatriate from the HelpAge International country office cannot back to the country, then remotely, oversight the programs and procedures in the country with the local staff doing the practical work in the ground. And then we see ourselves that, okay, with very minimal supervision of the expatriates, the country director, and the other supporting members going through the work from home practice. We just do it ourselves. That we can see ourselves. We have the capacity and resilience among the local team. Then we can be the strongest independent during this period. We can also be the independent one day as the local NGO, now today as H Myanmar. So yeah, those are the impulses or are the points that we think we have to do this, we have to do that.
It's quite interesting. And when I hear you make affirmative statements, we have the capacity, the necessity to be localized. I am very sure many of our colleagues in this room will equally have this urge. And it's really just to tell us it is possible. But I would just want to find out from you, Dr. Hen, what facilitated this journey? What made it possible?
It's all about, the value and the teamwork that we embedded in the localization journey, and then it's like the transition realization to become the independence along with the authentic leadership and teamwork. During the crisis, we have done a lot on our own, the ability to lead effectively, in the local context with our local capacity, through the locally led, locally driven approach. So then we think that those choices will be the right choice for us to stand on our own as H Myanmar. And then the other point I like to highlight here is the power of, instinctive, understanding in our own mindset. As a local team, we possess, the innate contextual understanding of the local context that expatriate, even with a significant experience, cannot really fulfill, cannot fully replicate, that understanding. I think that will be the key for the successful localization for our case.
This is quite amazing. And looking at, this journey that you have gone through, I am sure you experienced or encountered some obstacles, some challenges. I am really very curious, to know what some of these were, because of course, it will inspire us in this room to be aware of some of this. And why not start thinking about how possible to start thinking of addressing some of these should they emerge. Dr. Hen, what were some of those obstacles you encountered along this journey?
We have many obstacles. The most important thing to see the obstacles as opportunities to grab. To have all those obstacles, to embrace all those obstacles and turn it into the opportunities to be locally led and independent. For the very first one, the biggest obstacle that we have is to end the HelpAge trust for the independence, gaining HelpAge trust for the fully independence, and also just to demonstrate our capacities, our capabilities through real actions, rather than words and, talking something in the air. It's not work, just to show the real actions to earn the trust from our mother organization, HelpAge. But it's very time consuming, painful, really painful daily negotiations, back and forth adjustments between mother organization HelpAge and H Myanmar. Then the second one is the complicated, staff transition. As you all know that HelpAge in Myanmar has the biggest, country program in the past. We have so many staff and a HelpAge. Then when we start thinking about, having the local organization, we just need to start with very small team, core team, energetic, proactive members of the core team to lead the local H Myanmar. Then it makes us, taking two responsibilities, like the hybrid roles and responsibility for HelpAge, for the local organization. So the discussions and management, so many confusions and frictions among these discussions and interactions. Then the last obstacle I personally see is having the parallel leadership, because HelpAge has the leader, the country director leading the HelpAge International in the office. Then once we start Age Myanmar in 2013, 2023, I just personally left HelpAge and then just to let the local organization as the interim person to lead that. So then this parallel leadership within the same structure, with the same staff, with the same mindset, with more or less same roles and responsibilities, make X, unclear and some frictions, some challenges, Yeah, those are the obstacles that I would like to highlight here.
Interesting, interesting. And Sabrina Segal has shared an important question in the chat. Well, the question reads, how long did the independence journey take for Age, Myanmar to get established?
It takes almost more than 1 year, but once we start talking about localization in Myanmar, it was even in 2018, as far as I'm concerned. Then during the COVID period, we have just made a series of consultation, the research, talking with the consultants for looking for the different localization process. Then we've just talked to the HelpAge and then waiting for the HelpAge board approval. That was on 7 July 2023. Then we just set our establishment date on 7 July 2023. Then I, as interim CEO on 1st October 2023, then we just went through the transition periods, difficult situation. Then we go live on 1st October 2024. So if I personally say the journey, I think that would be 5 or 6 years. But if we only focus on very dynamic, periods, it would be around 1.5 years, to have that independent local organization.
This is really interesting. And this question I'm directing, at you, I would equally like to get Bert's perspective on it. But to get your thoughts, Dr. Hen, a journey, from inception thoughts to realization, about 6 years. What, according to you, are some of those difficult, hard decisions you and colleagues in Myanmar decided to take to ensure that this, Age Myanmar comes to life? What were some of those hard decisions you took?
This is actually about, transforming words into actions. That's what I like to, focus here, because we, for almost 5, 6 years, we always talk, meetings, events, workshops, consultation with the different consultants, research for the localization, looking for the different options. We always talk, all we have to do is to take a very simple step to take action. So that's what we need for the localization process in general. So yeah, that's what I like to respond to that question, Jim.
This is really, really important, because when we talk about shift the power, when we talk about localization of aid, decolonization of aid, some would argue that there is a lot of talk. Peace Direct has published a lot around these things. RINGO has published a lot. WACSI is doing some marvelous job in Africa. Yet, with all this literature, with all these discussions, we are still talking. What are those little steps we can take? But for you, Bert, even before we start having this exchange with you in detail, what was that one difficult decision you had to make in this process?
Thank you. That's a very interesting question. It's really great, actually, even though the story is familiar to me and the journey, of course, is familiar. It's always good to hear Hein describe the experience and hear him reflect on it. Makes me reflect a little bit on this and other processes. But what was the key issue maybe that unlocked this? HelpAge, just for context, HelpAge International, as part of our commitment to locally led development, is transitioning all its country offices and country programs, 11 in total, to locally determined actions. Some, like in Myanmar, they become national NGOs, others do other things, and I'm happy to share about that a little bit later if that's of interest. So that's the journey we're doing across all of our country programs. For Myanmar, and every journey is unique, I think the key moment came when we were talking about the aspiration of that locally determined vision for the next stage of HelpAge International in Myanmar. And we were talking in the same direction, obviously, yeah, with the team, exploring what that looked like. But at some point, we had to really listen more deeply and hear more attentively to what the team actually was telling us in terms of their aspiration. Yeah. And it came about when we were talking about the North Star that we were pursuing. And we actually, when we listened deeply and attentively, heard from the team that the true North was a few degrees to the left. The vision the team had, the local team had, was a little bit different from what was in HelpAge International's mind, in my mind, in the mind of the leadership, and in the mind of the institution. And I think a key moment was when we actually heard that and spotted that and put that on the table. When we talked it through and discovered the true north, and then committed to that, I think that was really a key step on the journey. It was still challenging, as Hein has highlighted. The journey has lots of obstacles and bumps on the road, but I think that, to me at least, was really critical in this process, to listen deeply, to hear attentively. It has made me reflect whether we've always succeeded in doing that in other countries or indeed in partnerships. And so I think that's really a key aspect to a successful localization process.
Listening to you, 11 countries with that ambition to ensure that we have locally determined programs. And this experience certainly should be taking place in these different countries that, you are championing this agenda in birth. In your view, what are some of the great lessons you've learned from this process engaging with colleagues in Myanmar?
Well, every journey will be unique. Every model is novel in its own way. But if I think across all the processes that we've undergone or that are still underway, I mean, and this will not surprise people, it really comes down to leadership, yeah, to that local leadership and the commitment, the vision, the aspiration, the passion for self-determination, yeah. Of course, we can, and we did as part of this process, talk about strategy and business plans and business model, all of those things. And that's important. Yeah, we wanted to stress test the vision to make sure that it, can thrive. But at the end of the day, to me, comes down to leadership. Yeah, and have a team like Dr. Hein and his colleagues, and in other countries, we have similar groups of people who really, are mobilized by this passion for self-determination, which, by the way, can be challenging for HelpAge International, for the parent organization, if you want, because they will challenge you. And they will say, we want different things, and this needs to change. And that's a good thing, actually. So for me, looking across, at the end of the day, it is leadership that makes a difference at an executive level, of course, but equally at a board level, right? And each entity is setting up its own governance structure and, again, different models. But when that exists, I have a lot of confidence that they will navigate the bumps on the roads. There are bumps on the roads, there always will be, but they will be resilient through it.
Thank you very much for that. And you mentioned with a lot of energy that there will be challenges. What were some of those challenges, as HelpAge International, you encountered along this journey?
Well, in the case of Myanmar, once we've actually established the true north, we said, okay, that's the aspiration. And again, this wasn't radically different from what we were talking about, but it was different in important nuances, in speed, in form, in the steps that the team wanted to go through. Once that was established, I think the institution and the people within it had to adjust to these expectations, right? I mean, as Hein said, Myanmar and all of our countries are flagship programs. We're very proud of it. It was a very big program. The country went through a lot, of course, COVID, the coup. A lot of commitment. Unique in HelpAge, we had expatriate staff there too, which we don't have in other country programs. So there was a lot of commitment to the Myanmar program, and with it, a certain set of expectations as to what this localized future would look like. And when the True North emerged, and that was a bit different, the institution had to go on that journey to manage and adjust to these new expectations. And that was possible, but I think that did take a bit of active engagement and letting go. I mean, shifting the power is sometimes really about the INGO to let go, place the trust in the local leadership, and let new ideas emerge, embrace those, walk alongside, be there. But that's not obvious for any institution. So I think that was kind of a practical thing to work through. We got there, but as Hein said, sometimes that was challenging, and it did take quite an active approach to get it right.
Yeah. And there is a question in the chat from Sabrina again. How does HQ, I understand, I assume that is headquarters, manage any risks, threats, for example, reputational, legal, financial, that arise having an independent entity functioning as part of the H network? Maybe you want to clarify, is H Myanmar part of the HelpAge International network? And then you can tackle that question.
So HelpAge International is based on a network model. Yeah. So we have organizations like H Myanmar now who have a shared mission, where we see ourselves as a network, not as a federation or confederation. So they are not part, H Myanmar is no longer part of HelpAge International. We are connected through the network and we collaborate in that space. And I think with that, and maybe that is also a plus, I believe it's a plus in this journey. It allows for much more heterodox approaches. You know, we are comfortable with this localization journey taking different directions, yeah? Like in EH Myanmar, but in others, we have a training center, we have a social enterprise that has emerged. And we're comfortable with that because we look at the relationships as part of a network, not as part of kind of a federated structure or a confederated structure. So in this sense, this is the relationship. There's still a lot of work to be done as to how do we connect in meaningful ways, how do we add value in this relationship. But it's structured as a network rather than as kind of a federated, confederated model.
So in that case, are there any reputational risks at all or threats to be worried about, to be managed in this case?
I mean, we collaborate together in different areas, and we will continue to do that. And hopefully, as part of that collaboration, we will do risk sharing and burden sharing. And yes, therefore, you know, there are risks to manage. But equally, Age Myanmar is independent, has its own governance board, and its own mechanism. So it is an independent institution. But obviously, for the areas where we collaborate, and I hope that extends to all the partnerships, we do share risks and do burden sharing.
Thank you very much for this. And Dr. Hein, I would like to bring you back into the conversation. You know, I know you've been following, and in such a process, you know, one would easily assume or perceive, you know, H Myanmar or an organization of your stature and experience and origins to have some kind of advantage over other organizations in the space in Myanmar. So I just want to find out from you, you know, what mechanisms do you put in place to make sure that you don't have an unfair advantage, you know, over other collaborators or actors in the space you operate within? Dr. Hein?
Yeah. For these questions, you know, this concern will be the critical one for us, why we are going through that journey together with HelpAge. You know, well, once I mentioned before that we've just had a series of consultations. During this consultation, we have very specific, you know, in-depth consultation with all the stakeholders engaged with HelpAge before in the country. So it has, you know, UN agencies, donors, and also with community members, even with the Older People Federation and like-minded older people organizations in Myanmar, disability organizations, and local CSOs, even with the governments in the past, and also with local authorities in the local areas. So we just went through that in-depth consultation, stakeholder buy-in throughout this process. Then we see that all the outcomes, the feedbacks from the stakeholders was, overwhelmingly positive. And then with the strong support for the Age Myanmar as the local organization carrying the HelpAge legacy. So very positive. Then in our case, it's very unique. We working for older people and people with disability in Myanmar. It's really exclusively, on this specific, group of people. It's very rare in underserved areas in Myanmar. So previously with HelpAge, also the same for the older person. Also for the Age Myanmar, our center of attention will be the older person to lead the program, to let the programs in the community. So those things, make us unique. Really ensure that there is no competition with the other stakeholders. Then one of the, the very important philosophies behind our localization journey is not to compete, but to complete each other. Age Myanmar complements the work of other actors. All the stakeholders working with HelpAge just to fill in the gaps that they need, like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. This approach really ensure that all the collective efforts and strengths lead to the greater, more impactful and long-lasting change for our community.
Thank you very much. And, just to find out and from you both, what really makes an organization, a new organization of this sort, permit me use that appellation, to be genuinely local or national? What are some of those characteristics that you think an organization that has gone through this journey, your case in point here, Age Myanmar, what really makes you to be truly national or local, as we can put it? And Bert, you can take that. You can share your thoughts, what you see in Age Myanmar today that would really, give you that happiness, that joy, that indeed this is a national entity and not, how would you call it, an extension of this international body, HelpAge International.
Yeah. I mean, I guess some of the key elements that I would be looking for is indeed local leadership, local governance, right? And not only in terms of the individuals leading the work at the executive and the board level, but then actually seeing how this new organization is taking a direction that it sees right for its context. Yeah, and we have already seen that, and Hein intimated how Age Myanmar's mission is slightly different from HelpAge International's mission. And that's based on their understanding of the context, the needs, the opportunities as they see it. And that's great. Yeah. Equally, a local organization who connects with us in meaningful ways, and sometimes that means challenge us in terms of how the relationship needs to change. We are no longer the head office. We're hopefully just a partner walking alongside, and that relationship needs to change. And so I think also looking for those indications where the relationship is different, and that is not just a technical piece of work in terms of how we co-design and plan, it also is a mindset issue. And just speaking for the HelpAge International staff and colleagues, we need to lose our head. We're no longer the head office. We're an office alongside all the other offices in the network, and we hopefully can exchange value and complement each other. So I think to the extent that that is featuring, I believe is also suggesting that we have an organization that is local. If I may just go back to the previous conversation, as I said, in this journey of localizing all of our country programs, we have a good number of country programs who nationalized, who became a national NGO. And we have done that with quite a bit of care, because we are aware of the concern that when an INGO nationalized, it can crowd out, it can create competition with existing local network members and partners. And as Hein said, we really tried to go through a very meaningful consultation because we wanted to make sure that partners did not feel we were competing with them. And in other countries, like in Lebanon, like in Uganda, we have a different model where actually the HelpAge International program and office closed. And we work now with those network members and partners through a partner-led programming approach. And there are new initiatives, coalition, a training center, a social enterprise that we are supporting. So not every country is nationalizing. Indeed, where we have network members who feel very strong as the national change agents, then we have tried to support other initiatives. So very conscious around that concern that INGOs, maybe big, well-resourced INGOs, come in and create like a national organizations, but in effect compete with existing partners. So we've tried to navigate that with care, and I hope we were successful in that.
It's really good to hear and learn about the uniqueness of the different approaches based on the context. There is an important question here in the chat by Sarah Torres. And by the way, colleagues, thank you for all the insights that are being shared in the chat. We may not be able to take all, but we'll try to take a couple of them. So Sarah says, thanks for sharing your journey. I am interested to know about the impact on resources. Does the entity in Myanmar fully manage all resources, income coming from grants? If so, how has that impacted HelpAge International? Maybe we take the first part of the question and direct it to Dr. Hen. So do you fully manage all the resources, coming from grants? Dr. Hen?
Yeah, we actually manage all the grants and resources directly to HelpAge, to Age Myanmar, with our independent own policies and procedures. So we are fully independent in this case. Yes.
I like the very direct answer. Yes. Thank you very, very much, because that is really, really helpful, because, it really clarifies a lot. And to you, Bert, if so, building on Dr. Hen's response, how has that impacted on HelpAge International?
So yes, and in significant ways, and that was understood and anticipated and accepted. So indeed, when country programs become independent organizations, and as Hein said, they are successful in accessing funding directly, those funds no longer flow through HelpAge International. Yeah, and the INGO business model is built on that kind of intermediary model. Just to note, HelpAge International continues to be an intermediary where we can be of value, and that can be for Age Myanmar or indeed for many other partners, particularly in humanitarian settings. HelpAge continues to be an intermediary where we can add value, or where indeed the donor is still requiring that. But yes, this change is indeed impacting our business model, right? And the overall flow of resources. And that is as anticipated. But it is significant, right? And so prior to the initiation of this journey, HelpAge in 2021 made some big structural changes. We became a leaner organization, we delayered, and various other things happened. And to a large extent, that was also about making ourselves ready for that path. And further changes are ahead. That's part of the transformation journey that localization requires. There's opportunities, therefore, in reinventing ourselves. I mean, just to note, HelpAge's transformation journey is bigger than the localization ambition. It's a key pillar. We absolutely want to be supportive of localization, and the country transition is one element. There's a lot of work happening in the partnership space as well. But beyond that, we are looking at, okay, how can we continue to hopefully add value in other ways, right? More in terms of bringing forward new practices, new norms, new policies, because that's what actually population aging requires. So alongside this work, which is impacting our business model, sits that broader transformation ambition of reinventing yourself and really evolving your value proposition. Yeah, and to me, that is the core of the transformation journey and the opportunity. But yes, there are significant changes that we're navigating.
we will be wrapping this conversation very soon, you know, at the top of the hour. But, you know, there is a very interesting perspective being shared that has been shared in the chat by Joe Zaremba, and it has attracted a lot of reactions, hearts and thumbs up. And I want to direct this to you, Dr. Hen, basically just to pick your mind on it, because it will certainly inspire some of us in this room. Joe says, localization can shift power to a new power center. For example, the educated urban elite who are nationalized but still not really inclusive. How can shift in power become meaningful for local communities / vulnerable and most affected people and ensure their dignity? From your experience, Dr. Hen, what reflections or reactions do you have to this?
For me, you know, I'm sure that, you know, our mandate is to, you know, preserve the legacy of HelpAge in the country, and also just to go beyond boundaries that HelpAge set in the country. So we are now doing that work, you know, just to keep that momentum that HelpAge invested in the country to serve for the people of Myanmar, especially for the older men and women, including the people with disability, also just to ensure their dignities through the locally led approach with our uniqueness, with the visions, missions, and the local leadership, local staff, local approach, you know, local power to influence, just to go through the local approach to generate the different funding sources and opportunities to maintain that momentum with impactful, financially sustainable model as local team. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And you know, we have a very interesting perspective, you know, in the chat from Hijong. Patrick Hijong, he says there is a necessary process of unlearning that is important here. Unlearning the models, the modes and models that have been inherited or required by an international non-governmental organization dominant system. Thank you very much, Patrick, for sharing that. And a colleague has shared a resource in the chat as well that I think it will be good to explore. I think it's Julia Zaret. Hi, everyone. I'd like to share a handbook, 5 pathways to enable meaningful participation of people with lived experience. This paper is primarily intended for international organizations referring to institutions headquartered or based in one country that aim to support people with lived experience residing in other countries. I think the link is there, and so we can access it, you know, and make use of it as and when. Thank you all, colleagues, for sharing these rich insights. Maybe, Dr. Hen, if we are to leave this conversation, what is that one key recommendation you will share with everyone in this room when it comes to transferring, you know, ownership, if we can put it that way?
Okay, so one recommendation would be to change the words to action, you know, take action step by step, bit by bit, even though we have the influence from INGO or outsiders or any stakeholders, whatever it is, all we need the confidence and proactive and energetic manner to take action step by step. That would be the key message that I would like to share with you.
Thank you very much. And Ben, what is that one resounding message you would want to leave us with?
Thank you, Jim. I'll speak from my perspective working in an INGO. We've talked a lot about how institutions need to change in order for localization to happen, for transformation to happen. I guess my recommendation is that, yes, that is true, but it is also a personal journey. Yeah. If we go on this process for people like myself and the majority of people in this room, I think it's also a personal journey of, like the previous contribution highlighted, of learning, unlearning, and relearning. And shifting the power requires us to rethink about the value add we bring, what's the role, what's the contribution, and that may actually require us to unlearn certain things or relearn things. And it's a personal journey, but once you step into it, I find it really liberating and fascinating. So my one recommendation is don't look at localization as just an institutional process, but it's equally one for the self, for each one of us, and it will actually enable it.
That is quite soul-touching, Bert. Thank you so much for that. And colleagues in the room, it will be good to hear from you. In the chat, I'm really, really sorry we are not able to take all those very rich questions and perspectives that are being shared in the chat. I apologize for that, but it will be good to hear from you, colleagues. Kindly share in the chat. What is that one thing you are taking away from this conversation? What is that one thing you are taking away from this conversation? Meanwhile, colleagues, just to let you know that the RINGO journey is still on, and so on the 2nd of December, the Global Fund for Community Foundations will be hosting a webinar with Deborah Dunn to discuss her book on the INGO problem, which draws on the learnings from the RINGO initiative so far. And if you want to get that book, it is actually on Amazon, and you can purchase a copy of the book, The INGO Problem, authored by Deborah Dwan, who is, a key initiator of the RINGO initiative. And of course, in partnership with Peace Direct, the West Africa Civil Society Institute is organizing a series of talks on decolonization. We had two with the English-speaking community and the French-speaking community some days back. And early next year, we are going to continue with these conversations. And so feel free to stay tuned to the Facebook page of the West Africa Civil Society Institute, the LinkedIn page of RINGO, to be updated on upcoming conversations. However, the recordings of the first two conversations are actually on YouTube. We are equally very happy to announce that RINGO will host a learning event on the 11th and 12th of February 2025. Kindly book the dates, 11th and 12th of February 2025, and it will be a series of sessions to build and nurture our community and share our learnings from the RINGO journey so far, our innovations, the action pods, the community gatherings that all transpired within the course of 2024, and how these can be taken forward to meet the challenges within today's activities in the civil society sector. We will also launch our new website where you can access the resources which make up the RINGO agenda for change. So please keep your eye on our different platforms, the Facebook page, the LinkedIn account, and the Twitter account of the West Africa Civil Society Institute, the LinkedIn account of the RINGO, to have more updates on this. And also, we are bringing phase 2 of RINGO to a close and are developing a new strategy for RINGO phase 3. Thanks to you all who have been a part of the conversations that have led to this phase 3 strategy, and we will share our transition plans at the learning event in February, so do not miss that event. And of course, if you are here and you've heard about RINGO and you want to know more about RINGO, and you are a funder and you want to support the initiatives that are currently ongoing within the RINGO space, feel free to reach out to us. You can write to info@wacsi.org, and we will respond to you and have a conversation on how best we can collaborate to make sure that this journey is a worthwhile one. Meanwhile, colleagues, we have come to the end of this session. I asked many of us to share our takeaways, and I see Francis Gee says, remember, the true north is a different place to what you think. My key takeaway, Immaculada, says, the importance of mindset, skills, and conduct to ensure action in the right direction. Melina says, listen to each other. I love that, Melina. Listen to each other and enter these conversations with as much humility as possible. It is a process. Of course, Estella Lewy says, wonderful session. Thank you so much, Jim, for facilitating, and thank you, Hen and Bert, for sharing your insights. The takeaway for my end would be the words from Hen. around passion for self-determination and commitment from leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, I can go on and on, but it will be injustice if I don't share my takeaway. And again, I have two. Sorry, I asked for one and I am sharing two. Forgive me, it's the power of the moderator. And actually, one from Dr. Hain, he said, we have the capacity. And indeed, we do have the capacity. And Bert said, shift the power is about the INGO letting go. And before I let you go, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at our ever-smiling Bert, behind him on the wall, you will find a young man with a lovely and stern smile. And the man says, freedom to decide for ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, this spotlight session was really about us reflecting on the possibility of giving everyone in our space, particularly within a national or what some would call a local space, that opportunity to have the freedom to decide for themselves. Thank you very much for joining this conversation. It has been a pleasure and always will be a pleasure to exchange with you. Bert and Dr. Hen, it is really a humbling opportunity to share and learn with you from your 6 years journey. Sharing it in under 60 minutes, it's really not fair to you. But I am very, very sure we would find time in the near future to explore more details about everything that went into this. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will have this recording curated and shared on our social media platforms for those so that we can visit it from time to time. And of course, we can share with our other colleagues. The onus lies on us to give to those whom we collaborate with the freedom to decide for themselves. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a pleasure exchanging with you, and we wish you a wonderful week ahead. From all of us at Ringo, from Age Myanmar, and from HelpAge International, we say thank you very much. À tout à l'heure et au revoir.